Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Woman in Between podcast. I'm excited because we're back with another solo episode. We've had some really great guests on the show. Please, if you have not already, go back and listen to the great episode that we had Leah Janelle on for. Tons of practical tips, a little bit different for us here on the podcast, right? I know we are always so used to talking about our healing journeys, and I always want to be supportive of those journeys and definitely share my experience. But I also think that there's a place for practical tips. So I'm happy that we were able to have that conversation. Obviously, the chemistry was there. So that also leads me to my next point. We are obviously now streaming on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you listen to your podcast. And we're also on YouTube, which is my favorite place to download as much content as possible. So if you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel. That is where we are also posting all of our episodes, video episodes for you to tune in. Definitely a place where we want to get some engagement and hear your thoughts, questions. How is this helping you? Uh, so head over to our podcast, Spotify, The Woman in Between, and then you can also find us on YouTube, The Woman in Between. So if you subscribe, you will get all the alerts on new episodes. So I definitely think you should do that. I don't want to miss. Here's my shameless plug. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about today that is very near dear to my heart, obviously being a single mom and getting very close to, 3-year anniversary of doing this, and thinking back to, how have I survived? Even though I feel like I'm still learning how to survive. But there are some pieces that I've learned along this journey that have really helped make life easier for me. Becoming a single mother, navigating what that looks like for not only myself, but for my kids. And I remember entering into this phase terrified, absolutely terrified of what was going to come next. The fact that I had no experience in this area of life. So the fact that, I was still very much healing from a relationship. I think what a lot of people get or miss is that as you're becoming a single parent, you're also removing pieces from your life, whether it's people, it's traditions, and you're juggling all of these emotions on this roller coaster. And so I just wanted to, one, remind you, yes, you can survive being a single parent, and no matter what situation you're in, you can survive that. And also provide you with some tips, some resources, what worked for me. And I'm very interested to hear what has worked for you. And I think a lot of these tips are definitely practical enough that they can apply to whatever situation you're in. This group here, we are all navigating the in between. We are all navigating seasons, stages of life, whatever you may have, we're all experiencing it. So I hope you're able to take something away from this, and let's dive into it. So, single mom survival tips. Like, I feel like if there was a single mom survival kit, maybe these pieces would be a part of it. And I know there's a myriad things that we can think about, but it helped me at my core. It took me a long time to learn, and I am still learning. Time management skills is critical. Because for some people, and I'll just speak for myself, I was going from a household that had two parents to two kids to one parent to two kids. And those kids were growing and those kids have needs, right? And how do I make sure that I'm meeting those needs while meeting my own needs and understanding that I'm only one person and you are only one person? Okay, kids or no kids, you are only one person. And one of the things that I think as most mothers, when you have when you have your child, especially your first child, you realize how much time they really take. Like you've got to pack the bags, and you've got to make sure that the bottles are ready, and you all of these things that you're having to manage, and you have to put time into that, right? You can't just run out the house and leave within 5 minutes. It now takes time. It now takes time. So you have to figure out how to manage that time. So I'm going to give you some practical tips. You do not need fancy apps to manage your time. You really don't. Uh, I think it's always great when you are starting from a place where you're learning something new, whether it's a new skill, whether it's a new practice. It is always great to just start as basic as you can. As basic as you can, start as low cost as you can, okay? Because you have to be able to see where there are gaps, where there are themes, to know, do I even need it? Do I even need it? So one of the first things that I would suggest, backwards planning. And this has helped me tremendously, especially considering the fact that my son is the youngest. He is our caboose of the family, and he moves like he's the caboose. So I'm always having to think about what is the start time for where we need to be at. And knowing that it takes him 30 minutes just to get out of bed, let alone get dressed and eat, I have to backwards plan into that. Case in point, church. I would even, yeah, we were even late for church this morning by 15 minutes, which for us is really good. But if I know, okay, we have to be at church by 9:30, right, or 9 a.m., and I also know that it takes us 20 to 30 minutes to get to church. And then on top of that, I know that it's going to take my kids at least 30 minutes to eat their breakfast, right? And so I am going backwards and I'm thinking about how much time is each step going to take me so I know when I need to wake up is always kind of my grounding point. When do we need to be there so I can determine when do I need to get up to start my day? And that ensures that I have time for not only the pieces that I need in the morning that are very critical for me. I want to make sure that I'm waking up in time to read my Bible and spend some time with God. A lot of the days wanting to make sure that I wake up in time to go to the gym. And then the next priority of that is I want to make sure that my kids are up in time so that they can make their beds, that they're able to get dressed and brush their teeth. I want to make sure that they have breakfast on time. And then I want to make sure we can get where we need to be on time. That does not always happen. That does not always happen. Please don't let me fool you. This is why I say grace comes in, right? There has to be an element of grace where you understand sometimes you can backwards plan all you want and you can get up on time. You can get up on time and something might be thrown in that. A wrench might be thrown. Somebody might be throwing up. You might get a call. You might have to drop something off somewhere. You might have to stop somewhere. Like there are a myriad of things that can happen, and all you can do is control yourself. That and I had to learn that. Like you can plan as much as you want, but you can't control everything. That's okay. That is perfectly okay. Having a plan is like a great blueprint. So when things do go wrong, you know how to get back on track. But just knowing that if things go wrong, it's not the end of the world. And I'm saying that as I'm talking to myself. So I think that also is an ear, and we talked about this in the last episode, and I'm going to stand beside this always. Calendar management, calendar management, calendar management. I know that it sounds so cheesy when we talk about going into your Google Calendar, going into your Apple Calendar, whatever that you're using, but I promise you it will save you 10 times over. Now, a thing with calendar management is you have to listen to yourself. So, for example, in my calendar, I have like what is called our opening shift. And what is included in the opening shift is right, me waking up and reading my Bible, me waking up and doing a workout routine, but it's also including like what chores I have that I want to get done in the morning that are very quick chores. Please do not think that I'm sitting here mopping my kitchen. I am not. Maybe running the dishwasher, maybe taking the trash out, but that's part of my morning shift. So that is integrated into my calendar where I know at 5:30, I'm going to have my morning shift alarm go off. It is a 30-minute bucket, and I have to stay true to that time because I have other time blocks on my calendar. But I have to be disciplined enough to listen to myself. And I think this is also an area that I'm still working on where I will create all of my time blocks for the week. And I will always review it the night before just to make sure, like, right, things change. Especially like a kid could get sick, all of a sudden I need to bring them to the doctor. So that's pushing everything and being mindful. But if I'm saying, okay, I'm going to work out from 5:30 to 6:30, from 6:30 to 8, I'm going to be focused on the kids and getting them ready. And from 8 until 5, I'm going to be working. And 5 to 6 is family time. Like I have to listen to myself because the version of myself that made those time blocks with a goal and was looking out for Jelesa. And so I have to make sure that I'm adhering to myself, being accountable to myself, hearing about myself enough to do what is right for me. So I want to emphasize that because I know we hear so much about calendar management, blocking off our calendars. We can get into the intricacies of, you know, color coording and the different calendars that you can have. We could talk about that all day long, but if you build that out and you still don't listen to yourself, it is for naught. You have to listen and you have to listen to yourself. So are you obedient? Is going to be your real question. Then next thing I think is like a really small trick. And I realized this and I was in a loaner car when my car was in the shop. And I noticed that clock was actually 10 minutes behind or ahead. Maybe it was ahead. It was 10 minutes ahead, which I thought was strange. But I actually like to set, oh, it was 10 minutes behind. Sometimes you might need to look at your clock and you might need to get as rudimentary as setting your clock back a few minutes or sometimes setting your clock forward. I will personally set my clock forward sometimes because I will be rushing thinking, oh my goodness, we're late. It's 9:15. And then I get in my car and and then I actually look at my phone, so to speak. So my car will say 9:15, right? Car is reading 9:15. However, my phone is really showing, no, it's 9 o'clock. So I am actually early. Just check. Sometimes you have to trick yourself. I love doing that, because it's kind of this surprise of like, wait, I'm not doing as bad as I needed. And sometimes we need those type of surprises. I want to keep in mind when we talk about time management, I think it's something that although it's practical, we also have to be realistic, right? Time is so fluid and we have no idea what is going to happen in our days. You can only plan so much. So I would one say create a date with your talent, whether that's a Friday night. For me, I love Sundays to just sit down in the afternoon while my kids are playing and I'm just going through everything that we for the week. And it's such a great time to pull everything. Like, what do we have going in school? What do we have going on with church? What do we have going on with extracurriculars? What do I have going on? And looking at all of those pillars and downloading it into the calendar. And you don't have to overwhelm yourself into thinking and have to put everything in for the full month. You don't. You can take it week by week. Personally, taking it week by week for me has been a lot more stress free than it has in the past because I think I would set my month up and would have all of these commitments for myself without like really putting into play, like, how are you going to feel emotionally with all of these commitments? Like, are you going to be burnt out after like a 10-day stretch with back to back like events and then you have full, work days? Like, is that something that's going to make sense? And I've done it. Like, I literally have it in here, right? My paper calendar. And as you can see, it is jam packed with a lot of things that did not happen. And you have to give yourself grace. We always give ourselves grace in this space. I also think having to think on a Friday morning at 6 a.m., am I going to want to do this? Because I'm naturally used to winding down. Am I going to want to do this at 9 o'clock at night? Am I going to want to go to my third event on a Sunday night after I've been going all weekend? And so I think one, having that paper calendar and being able to realistically think about how is this all going to happen is critical because you're not going to get it all done. Like I said, everything on here did not happen. Look at it here for the lighting. Everything on here, it didn't happen. This is a blueprint. This is all a blueprint of this is everything that's going on in our pillars. What makes it to the calendar is what is actually going to happen. Blueprint, digital calendar is for what actually happens in reality. So I don't overwhelm myself. If all of that was on my digital calendar and I was looking at my weeks, I have done that to myself. And while we're on time management, because I can spend a lot of time, I could spend a lot of time here. If you are still, if you're in the spot where you're like, I don't have enough time. I don't know where I'm going to find time. I have all of these things that I need to do, but I can never get them done. I would definitely also say start time mapping. This is something I worked with a coach that had me do this because I never felt like I had time in my day. She made me actually break down my time for the month. She was like, take a month, really break out the percentages of time that you're allocating to these areas of your life. And so I had to break down how much time am I spending at work? How much time am I spending at church? How much time am I spending volunteering? How much time am I spending with my friends? How much time am I spending with my family? Right? Studying was a part of that. So I had to look at that time. And then the podcast is a part of that as well. So I had multiple buckets that I was pouring into that I didn't feel like I could give all of my time to. So I had to map that out. And work is an easy way, right? Okay, give or take, I'm gonna hit 40 hours a week times four. I already know where a good chunk of that is. And so if you take the total number of hours in a month and start sectioning off how many hours you're working in each important pillar of your life, it's going to paint a very clear picture for you. And for me, it almost it showed me that I was not being honest with myself, how much time I really had. And it really showed me, no, you do have time to pour more into these spaces. You're just spending too much time on TikTok. I was really, no, seriously, that was part of the, but we can find ourselves lying to ourselves internally when we do not have that bench. So I think being able to see it visually of where is your time going, so you can hold yourself accountable appropriately. You don't want to just be downtrodden, like upset with yourself, beating yourself up, talking negatively to yourself because you feel like you should be giving more time or less time in certain areas. Get as accurate as you can. Time mapping before calendar management going to make sure that you're setting up realistic time framing goals for yourself to be successful. That is enough on time management. I'm like, we can go on and on and on about time management, especially as a parent. So the next one, which is one of my favorites, my absolute favorites, meal planning and prepping. One, if you do not have a crock pot, I highly recommend you go out and you get a crock pot with the crock pot bag so you don't have to clean. Save yourself, save yourself. The next thing is meal planning. Meal planning has been a part of my life since I had my first daughter, and that will be forever one thing that I have been so grateful for. And I had my daughter 10 years ago, which is crazy. One of the things I was really appreciative of her dad was he incorporated meal planning into our lives and would have prep smoothies, which I like, that supported me with my breastfeeding needs, also like my lunches. So that was something that I never had to think of. And although, like, right, I strayed away from that a little bit, but we're back here where we are prepping a weekly basis, and that is breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That is all prep. And I decided to take it a step further because a lot of the time we're running around, so we're just needing to grab something really quick. So everything is in like to go meal containers. Morning to night. We even did that this morning for church. I'm like, I know you're not going to have time to sit here and eat this breakfast. Everything's already put together. I'm going to load that up in the car. We have a 20 to 30-minute drive. You eat that while we're on the perfect. And so that has been something that has taken the guesswork. And for a lot of people that know me, or if you follow me on my personal page, Daybird Flu, check it out. Working out and eating healthy is critical to my well-being. Fortunate to, lose a good number of weight and hitting my goals. Well, we're almost hitting by 2020 goals. But I'd be cognizant of how I'm energizing my body, what I'm putting into my body. And that's like a whole other episode of like me figuring out what works best for me. But I'm not going to have time in the middle of the day to try to craft a lunch. I'm not going to have time at 6 p.m. at night when we're getting ready to head out to a practice, and then we're not going to get home until 8. I want that stuff ready. So there are a multitude of ways that you can figure out what type of meals that you want. For me, I personally love using ChatGPT. That has made like 10 times easier when it comes to meal planning because I'm able to put a prompt on, I want high protein meals. I want high protein meals for this amount of days. And I do get pretty granular in some of my prompts because I like to track what I'm eating and when I'm eating it. But you can simply ask, I need these high protein meals. And if somebody is allergic to something or, they're restricting themselves on some foods, you can say that and get the right recipe. And then, like I was saying in the last episode with Leah, right? Any list is a great tool. Put all your grocery items there, send it out to be picked up, and there you go. But I cannot stress enough, try to prep your meals. And we'll say that meal prepping for me was difficult when I was trying to meal prep for 7 days. And I realized this with my son because he never really ate baby food because he was eating through it so quickly that we could not keep up. Like, even financially, I was like, you're eating through like $50 of baby food in 3 days. So I started making all of this food. And I would just prep him in with everybody else. And it would take me an entire Sunday to do week. And I realized this isn't what I want to spend my entire Sunday on, nor is it something I can afford to do my for a full Sunday, right? Like, I'm not trying to sit up here baking sweet potatoes all day. Nobody's trying to do all that. So I would only do it like Monday through Wednesday. I would make enough Monday through Wednesday. And then on Wednesday, I would find something else quick to make. And I would try to make it be something that I could easily put in the oven, in the crock pot, and blend it up and be done. Even to this day, sometimes I'll do that. If I know I have a busy week, I will, like, for example, I'll make a big batch of oatmeal. And I know that Monday through Wednesday I can eat that. Or I'll make some like crock pot chicken. And I know for the next 3 days I can eat. And then Wednesday night, when we have dinner at church, since I know I'm not going to be cooking when we get home, I'll have something in the crock pot for Wednesday through Friday. So you can break it up so it's just not as overwhelming to look at because meal prepping can be overwhelming. Writing the grocery, coming up with the recipes, writing the grocery list, picking up the groceries, putting up the groceries, cooking the meals, that can be a lot. So if you have to break it up for your sanity, do that. Then I also think, this is where I think setting that intentional time, it's always going to come back to the calendar management piece. You have to set time to plan for your meals. So right now for me, it's Fridays at 5:30. That is no longer going to work. Fridays at 5:30 don't work. I'm usually working at 5:30 and I haven't thought about it. I don't want to sit and think about it. Now move that to Saturday evenings because I know I will pick my groceries up Sunday after church. And that gives me enough time to make sure I've collected everybody's list of what they want. So you can split it up, but having like 30 minutes on your calendar, and it's not to say that you're always going to use that 30 minutes. It can become pretty repetitive, right? If you know, okay, these are the meals that I want, like to have in rotation, do it. And then, you might only need those 15 minutes and you can repurpose those other 15 minutes that you didn't use. But having scheduled time right? So you have time where you're just reviewing your calendar. And maybe in that time, you're looking at when am I going to plan my meals for the week, for every week? Or maybe you're just looking at this week. I want to keep reiterating through this that these survival tips can happen in iterations. You don't have to have it all together at once. You don't have to decide you're going to meal plan and then instantly have 7 meals ready for the week. You don't have to do that. You can phase your way into it. Then you can look back at the end of your week and think, what worked and what didn't? What did I like and what did I not like? I realize, yes, I do love when I have each individual meal packaged up and ready to go. But I also recognize that that's not always a possibility. So I had to come up with what is going to be my second option. Like there's iterations to this to allow you to figure out what works for you and what doesn't work for you in the season that you're in. Meet yourself where you are. Okay. So then the third survival tip is going to be creating structure and boundaries. If you didn't have an opportunity to listen to that boundaries episode, it was in the summer. There were two episodes where we covered boundaries. I will definitely link that below so you can check them out. You are going to need some clear boundaries. People know I am still very much working through the boundaries that I set for everyone that is involved in my life, especially if they impact my children. And so I had to really first start off with creating boundaries around time is the one resource that we cannot get. You cannot get it back. You cannot earn more time. You cannot pay for more time. So I had to put boundaries around my limited resources first. So the first thing was time and really starting off with decide where I'm going to put my time at the top of every week. No one gets to determine that. I put in what my priorities are based off of my pillars in life. And then add everyone else in. And this goes like my friends, if they want to get it together, my kids' friends, family, because what you have to think about, especially as a single mom, how you are going to feel after that is. And for those of you that remember my Mother's Day episode, you know that I exerted myself and chose to take part in a Mother's Day event that completely drained. When I got home, I remember how drained I was. And from that point, I didn't ask myself the question of, can I go? Do I want to go? The question that I always ask myself is, how am I going to feel when I get? If I do this, how am I going to feel? I know that I am going to feel exhausted, that I'm going to be burnt out, that that's the last bit of energy that I have. I'm probably going to say no. And here's the thing, you don't have to explain why you were saying no. You don't have to explain why you're saying no to anything. You know what you are capable of giving. You know where your cup is. They will understand because what I realized is everyone else is being cognizant of their time as well. Nobody else is having a problem saying, I'm not going to be able to make it. So you deserve to do the same thing for yourself. Your calendar is yours and yours alone. You get to determine what you're going to fill it with. Next thing is really understanding what your core kind of family theme, your structure, like what is a priority for your family? For me, our family, it's having, we like to have fun on the weekends. I'm not gonna lie. You can find us at the festivals, you can find us at the concerts. We want to be there. So I put that time in and I'm not willing to budge on. So if you're asking us to like, you want us to meet you at the library on a Saturday, that's probably not going to happen. There like a county fair happening? 1,000%. We are going to be there because that's where we want to spend our time. That's how we enjoy our time together. And that's okay. So really thinking about what is the structure of my family? Where are our priorities, right? We also know that on Sundays, those are more lax days. So we don't make sure all of our chores are done before Sunday hits. And that way we can relax. And that's a boundary that we have. So we're not going anywhere. We're not running back and forth unless it really falls underneath some core pillars that we. And I want to just say being okay with the quiet and the peace and creating that sanctuary for yourself is going to be critical to making sure that you have your structure. I think what also helped me is having a schedule with my kids. They were 6 weeks old. They've had the same bedtime. Now, don't let that fool you because even though they have the same bedtime, they still stay surprised about that bedtime. They've always had the same bedtime, and we've always had the same wind down routine. During that wind down routine, I know like if you're calling my phone, I'm probably not going to pick up. If you're trying to go out during that time, no. If I have meetings during those times, it's not going to happen, right? Because our wind down time is critical. My children thrive off of routine. And then another, piece of advice, especially for those of us that have parallel parents or co-parents involved, having structure around just your life, but even like those pickups and drop offs, and then what your boundaries are with that co-parent are critical as well. I am not going to dive into that today because I feel like that is an entire episode in itself. Then I think being able to give yourself grace within the structure and boundaries that you're creating. We all go through different seasons. I've noticed for myself, sometimes I'll try to mirror the same structures and boundaries no matter what season I'm in. And that doesn't always make sense. Sometimes you have to pivot, sometimes you have to change, sometimes you have to accommodate and just be prepared for that. Now, the last one, which is my favorite, we talk a lot about community and support and the importance of it. And I think we all thrive and crave that from all of our lives. And this is going to be critical to your survival as a single parent. And when I say support network, I do want to be very intentional about understanding not all support is good support. I have found as a single mother, had to ask myself, do they support me or do they support my kid? Because if you support me, you're going to do what's right for me, which is always going to be what's right for my kid. If you only support my kids, you're really only trying to support their fleeting happiness. I'm going to try to be really mindful as I'm saying this because it's a complicated thing for me to even wrap my mind around because I've only just started noticing it. I feel like when people only support your children, you can actually feel it. Like you can feel when someone doesn't like you, but they like your kids, which I personally don't think that those two can fit. Like if you don't like dealing with me and you don't like who I am as a person, I have a hard time believing that you're gonna like your kids. Also, I think when someone is only supporting your children, those are the ones where it's like, just buy them candy and let me just take them here and let me just spoil, 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 even if it deviates from the boundaries and the structure that, right? So like if you, and let me give you an example, somebody that supports you, they are going, let's say planning a birthday party for your kids and you are ripping and running. Someone that supports you is going to ask you, what can I help you with? Somebody that supports your kid, they are not going to ask you what you need help with. They're actually going to call us like, oh, hey, by the way, I was actually in the neighborhood, brought some candy for your kid, right? Let's say your kids don't eat candy. This person knows that your kids don't eat candy. Remember when I had just had my daughter and I had asked like, hey, during these hours, we're going to be sleeping and I need to sleep. I need to rest. I had a C-section and we would have guests that would show up during those specific hours. I never got it because it's like, I need rest. And at the time, I said, I just had a C-section. So if I was downstairs, I had to be downstairs. If I was upstairs, I had to be upstairs. And so during the day, I would be downstairs with my family. And When people would come over, right, they're also downstairs. And this is in the middle of nap time. So it's not like I can just walk upstairs because then I have to be up there all day. And also, like, it's just a time of rest. For someone that cared for me, right, they would recognize this is a time for Jelesa to rest. Let me rest because it allows her to be a better mother. Someone that just cared about the kids were like, well, let me go over. I want to see the kids. And the kids obviously want to see me. That is hard to differentiate. Like I said, it's something that I'm still differentiating to this day. I think as a single parent and just in general, we all deserve people that consider us and care about us and our needs and that know us well to be able to support us. So I wanted to preface that. Hopefully, I explained that well enough to where it made sense. But find people that support you because you support your kids. And if they're supporting you, they're supporting your kids. Then I also think find inclusive communities. As a single parent, obviously, I think dealing with the stigma and the judgment that comes with it, not every space is a space for me. And unfortunate, but at the same time, we all deserve to be in spaces that just make sense for us. And I think a good example for me is like my church has a thriving and large single parent community, and they are celebrated. We also have a thriving divorce support community, addiction. There are various support for each stage of life, and there's no shame in it. And when I tell you that is so rare to find in a church, I've been so used to telling people I'm divorced, and then I get and can I be honest, as someone that is trying to move on and thrive, those aren't the responses that I need. I don't want to feel significantly different. I don't want to feel like I have, something on my face. I want to be encouraged and knowing that this is possible, right? So it was so impactful for me to see people that were going through same life stages as me. And if you've been listening to the podcast some time, I found my church as I was going through my divorce and ended up meeting an amazing group of people that sat with me during that journey. As I transitioned from that healing and became a single parent, I found another community that I am now thriving in and genuinely love and adore the people within it. And those people not only support my kids, they support me, checking in on me and making sure my mental health is good. And then that leads into the kids. And so, you know, I think when it comes to building a supportive network, it can be really hard. I think just in general as adults, right? You're no longer in these kind of cohorts. You're not naturally in these cohorts, whether it is, high school, college, you're in sports. You're kind of put in this weird element where you have to seek out these relationships. And how many of us have been in those situations where it's like, yeah, we planned the dinner, but are we going to show up? You don't know. I don't know. And honestly, I love canceled plans. So that is a problem in itself. I wouldn't say a challenge. It is a challenge. But I think there's a lot of ways to find really supportive community. And I think speaking to my single mamas, you almost have to be the one to normalize your situation. It's a it's not a task that should be put on us, but is. Being a single parent for a lot of people, that's their worst nightmare. And the narrative has been communicated that it is impossible and that it is a struggle and that you're not going to make it. That is a lie. Please hear me. I want to say that. There is more than just surviving in single motherhood. You can thrive and you can have a beautiful life. You can have children that flourish truly. There point is your kids are in a healthy and stable environment. There's some married people that cannot say that. Please don't let people fool you. There's a lot of people living in unfulfilled marriages. There's a lot. Getting off topic. I'm getting off topic because I'm passionate. I almost have to make people feel comfortable with your situation because you're comfortable with it. And an example of that is if I would tell people like, oh no, I'm divorced, it's just me and my two kids. And when I would get the response of going to be all about we're doing well. I'm actually better than I've ever been. Like this is what we enjoy, so what do you and your family enjoy? You have to push it a step further and say, we are not going to sit in this uncomfortable space. I don't sit here on a daily basis. I am ready and I'm ready to move. And if you're not, that is okay too. That is okay. And it's okay to acknowledge that. I spent a lot of time trying to deny that part of my experience because I didn't want people to feel sorry for me when I owed myself the opportunity to grieve my loss. So, cannot reiterate that enough. Having a supportive community in a community that reflects you. People talk so much about representation, and it has always kind of been boxed into like, what do we need to see on TV? What do we need to see in our books? In our day to day lives, you have to see people that are in the same situation as you thriving. And I have felt like I actively seek that out. If I find out that you're a single mother and then I find out that you're doing well at it, I want to be around you. I want to see those examples because so many of the other examples speak down on the life that we live. And I think that goes for anyone. No matter what stage of life you're in, I am hoping that you find someone that can be an image, be a representation of where you want to. So those are my tips on how to survive as a single mom. 4 key tips with a lot of sub bullets, and I appreciate you guys for joining in on this ride with me. Always, please navigate this transition with grace. Please take the skills, the survival skills, and use them with grace and be patient and kind to yourself. This has just been such another great space to share and learn. I can't wait to hear how you guys have learned to thrive in your seasons. Please remember, follow us on the YouTube channel, subscribe to get more episodes, and I will see you on the next Tuesday.